What's up, y'all? So today we got a pretty complex game day breakdown. This one has two parts and there's motion involved, so let's get right into it. So we started out with this picture of a bison. I just cut that out. Again, just use the same techniques I usually use. I have a whole video on how I do that. If you want to go check that out, I'll link that above. So I put a black and white filter over top, and then I just used a curves layer and like a big S curve to make it really contrast. Then we have this picture of our offensive lineman, and I put an unsharp mask and a camera raw filter on him. I do that to most of the cutouts that I use as long as they're high quality. I do a camera raw filter to every single thing that I put in here, but the unsharp mask just depends on like how high the quality of the image is. And then another curves layer. Basically what I did there was just deepen the shadows to make it kind of fit the same look as the bison. And then I added in our texture, set the overlay, and then just brushed it onto where like his skin is, you know, like besides where like his hair and eyebrows and mustache and all that go, to make it look like face paint. And then I just added some shadows with a black brush on the edges. Then I added in game day with an outer glow and used a smoke brush to brush in some breath coming out of the bison's nose. And that's it for the first slide. And then for the second slide, I just had the lines texture I'd been using for the ground. Then we had the same lineman but a different photo shoot picture from further away. Cut that out, then put the camera raw filter on him. And then I put a whole bunch of different layer styles on him. So we have a color dodge coming from the top right, and that's very thin just to kind of give him the rim light. Then we have color dodge that's a little more faded, a little more gradient, and a little less harsh coming from the top right. And then we have a soft light shadow coming from the bottom left. And then we have an inner shadow set to linear burn. And this one, if you use this curves layer, as you can see from this box right here, it kind of gives a shadow to the inside of him. So like the shadows coming, or the light's coming from behind him and hitting him like, you know, on the top right area. So like all this underneath would be a little bit darker. So instead of like painting that in, which I could do and it wouldn't be that hard, but instead of painting that in, I just add this inner shadow in and it makes him look darker where he's supposed to look darker, if that makes sense. So then I added in another picture of a bison, and this bison is actually looking at the camera, but nobody knows that because I put it down far enough to where you can't tell. So then I added in a camera raw filter and a Gaussian blur since he's really close to the camera, and added in an inner shadow, basically all the same stuff that I did to the other cutout, and then just put a drop shadow to kind of separate him from the picture of the lineman. And then I used a black and white layer to obviously make them both black and white, and then made them a little more contrasty, just brought down the shadows a little bit with the curves layer. Then we have the game day info, again use the gradient overlay on top of that whole group, and then the logos up top. And then I added another overlay with our texture on his face to give him some cool face paint. And then I just made that one whole layer and added in another text layer to come in as the motion starts to happen. So I added in this graphic that I had made before. So this will show up first, and then this will show up, and then this text, as you can see, it says night right here, that'll show up after. So I added in our usual light from the top right, shadow in the bottom left, and then the color lookup in the bottom info. But then if you go up here to window, click on timeline, you can see I've added in like keyframes for where things are supposed to happen. So as it slides this way, this layer gets bigger. So basically I just transformed it. So if you click over here, you click this thing, it makes this keyframe show up. So as you can see, it's yellow right there because I clicked it. So it was this size. And then you drag the slider down to like 4 seconds, which is where this is at. And then you just transform it, and you just take the picture and do your regular Control T, change it the size you want. And then when you play that back, it'll change to that size over this span of time, if that makes sense. If you do any video work, you know how all this goes. But if you've never messed with motion graphics or anything like that, then you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so this is gonna go super slow, but basically I set it to where they just like go back and forth and then change to that one, and then later, so that one grows over time, and then the word night is drawn out over top of that whole thing. So it would actually be a little bit quicker. That's how it's supposed to look, sort of. It's kind of lagging because of my computer speed, but basically both of those things happen, and that's it. And I mean, you shouldn't do too much motion stuff in Photoshop. Photoshop's not really made for motion, but I kind of got used to it from doing it from a while back, and I still use it for like pretty simple stuff. But that's how that works. So I hope you learned something. Hopefully that's useful to you, and check out this next video for another game day graphic breakdown from the same series.